Hi everyone, I'm Whitney and I post a new tutorial every week to help sewers of all skill levels learn new projects and techniques. This week I'm showing how to make a lined zippered tote bag. I shared a zippered tote bag tutorial a couple of months ago and a lot of you really liked that video, and in that one I actually used bias binding to finish off all the raw edges at the top of the bag. This one is quite a bit different. It doesn't involve any bias binding or anything like that. All of the raw edges are finished inside the bag, more like a traditional tote bag, but there is still the zipper at the top and there are pockets on the outside. I know a lot of you really like pockets, so I made sure to include them in this design and I hope you love it. Now there are a lot of measurements involved in making a bag like this, so I put them all together in a PDF along with some cutting information as well as these step-by-step instructions written out for you, and you can find that PDF over on whitneysews.com under the shop tab. If you are a second tier or higher patron, the PDF is already available for you over on Patreon, so you can just head over there and download it. And I want to say a huge thank you to all of my patrons for making it possible for me to put out longer tutorials like this one on a more regular basis. Now onto the project. I chose 3 different fabrics for this project, a medium weight denim and then 2 quilting cottons. They were all pre-washed, ironed, and then cut to the exact needed sizes. There's also fusible fleece and a medium weight interfacing used in this project, and all the information including yardage and everything is in that PDF that I already mentioned. Start by fusing all the stabilizers to their corresponding fabric pieces. Lay the stabilizer textured side down on the back side of the fabric and press with an iron according to the directions on the package. Here are my bag outer pieces, 2 pocket pieces, and the zipper side pieces all fused. Now onto the sewing. Match the pocket pieces up in sets of 2 so they are right sides together. Sew along the top edge. Use a 1/2 inch seam allowance on each seam of the bag unless otherwise noted, and always backstitch at the beginning and ending. Open each set up and fold so all the pretty sides of the fabric are on the outside. Press each set so the seam is right at the top edge and is laying nice and flat. Then sew a top stitch along the top edge. I sewed 2 rows of top stitching just because I like the look of it. Place 1 pocket on a bag outer piece, lining up the raw edges at the bottom. You want to center it the best you can and make sure the pocket is parallel with the sides of the larger piece. It is very helpful to have a gridded ruler for this. Add clips and pins to hold the layers together, then sew along the sides and bottom a 1/4 inch or closer from the edges. Repeat these steps so you have a pocket sewn on both bag pieces. Don't worry about the raw edges on the sides, they will be covered later with the bag straps. Speaking of the straps, cut 1 strap lining piece in half and lay 1/2 right sides together on each full piece. Sew across the short side to attach. Open and press, then sew a top stitch to hold the seam allowance down. Then trim down all the strap pieces to 54 inches long. Match up the strap pieces right sides together and sew down 1 long side of each set. Add pins or clips if that makes you more comfortable. Open them up and fold so the pretty sides are all on the outside. Give the side with the seam a good press. Then press each long edge in by a 1/2 inch so all the raw edges are tucked in between the layers. This does take a little while to do, but I wanted to make the straps this way instead of sewing both long edges while they were right sides together and then turning the entire tube right sides out. The denim would make that way too hard to do. This style does take more time at the iron, but as long as the amount that is turned in and pressed stays consistent, it turns out nicely. Add craft clips as you go to hold the layers together. I'll have an Amazon link below where you can find these craft clips. I absolutely love using them. Lay the strap as shown where it covers the pocket's raw edges and mark a spot about 1 inch above the top of the pocket. Mark it with a large pin and mark the same distance up from the other edge and on both ends of the other strap. Sew along each long edge of the strap to close up the open side and give it a nice top stitch, but only between the markings. The lower portions will be sewn closed and top stitched later. Do this for both straps. Now time to position the straps on the bag. They need to be placed so the outer edge is 3 inches from the edge of the bag and cover the sides of the pockets. Make sure they are straight all the way up and pen in place. Sew up each side of the strap to where the first bit of top stitching ended, sew across a time or 2, then sew back down the other side. The straps should be completely finished on all the long edges now and sewn securely to the bag outsides to a point just above the pockets and then free above that. So up to this point, I was using a size 1490 sewing machine needle. It was just the needle that happened to be in my sewing machine when I started this project because I don't always remember to change my needle. But at this point, I did switch to a size 16-100 because I'm sewing through a lot of denim and I didn't want to risk breaking a needle as it was going through so many layers. You can definitely use a size 16 or even a denim specific needle for this entire project. I don't usually worry too much about the needle size. I probably shouldn't say that, but I use this vintage sewing machine right here, and vintage sewing machines can often sew through heavier fabrics and more layers of fabric than a more modern sewing machine. So if you are using a modern sewing machine, definitely start out with a size 16 or denim needle from the start, and you'll just be better off. So don't do as I do, do what I say. Now it's finally time to start sewing the bag body together. Place the 2 outer pieces right sides together, matching up all the edges. Add clips and sew around the sides and bottom. I sewed along the bottom edge twice to make sure it was nice and strong. We're going to box the corners to give the bag more shape. Stand the bag up and press the corner down so it forms a triangle out to the point. Grab an acrylic ruler and lay it on the corner of the bag so the width takes up 4 inches on the ruler. This will make the depth of the bag 4 inches. Mark right along the edge of the ruler. I just use a regular pen because it's easy to see when sewing and it won't show through the denim. Add clips, then sew right on that marked line. I sewed across twice, really close together, just to make it stronger, and then trim off the excess at the corners, leaving about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Go ahead and turn this part of the bag right sides out. You can start to get an idea of how your bag will look completed, and you have a chance to smooth out the seams before the lining goes in. On to sewing that lining together. Lay the 2 lining pieces right sides together so they are all lined up. Sew along the sides and bottom, but leave a 6 to 8 inch opening in one side for turning the bag through. It needs to be high enough up that it won't interfere with boxing the corners, and larger than normal because denim needs more wiggle room for turning through. Box both corners the same way they were done on the bag outer. A box 4 inches wide, mark it, and sew directly on the marked line. Trim off the excess seam allowance. Here's how the bag lining should look with the boxed corners and the opening in the side. Grab the zipper side pieces and turn each long edge in by 3/4 of an inch and press. Do this for both sides. Mark a 1/2 inch in and a 1/2 inch down on the top corners. Fold each one in half with the pretty sides inside and sew from the mark to the folded edge on each. The seam goes right up to that marked dot and then it is left open above. This is so we can add the zipper in later. Trim the seam allowance down as shown so it's narrow at the bottom and wider near the unsewn top edge. Turn each one so it is right sides out. Give them a press so they have a nice crisp fold. Match the folded edge up with the raw edge at the top of the bag outer. The long open side should be facing down toward the bottom of the bag. Measure to make sure it's centered between the side seams and add clips. Do this on both sides of the bag, then sew them both on about 1/4 inch from the edge to attach. Bundle up each strap and clip to keep them out of the way while the lining is being sewn in. Put the outer bag inside the lining so they are right sides together. Make sure the straps are tucked down inside between the outer and lining. Line up the top edges and the side seams. Clip the layers together along the top edge. Sew all the way around that top edge to attach. Reach in through the opening and carefully turn everything right sides out. Make sure the edges of the opening are turned in 1/2 inch and sew a top stitch near the edge to close it up. Tuck the lining into the bag. The seam allowance will want to point upward because the denim is stiffer, but you'll need to mess with it until it is pointing down and the seam is right along the top edge of the bag. You can see how I've smoothed it out and top stitched the upper edge, and the long sides of the zipper pieces are still open. Slip the zipper in between the open layers of one zipper side piece so it is between the folded in edges. You want the folded edge of the fabric to be far enough away from the zipper teeth that it can still be zipped and unzipped easily. You can pin or clip in place before heading to the sewing machine, but I prefer not to on this one and instead just adjust the zipper as I'm sewing. I sewed across twice, about 1/8 of an inch apart. Here's how it looks with one side of the zipper sewn to the zipper side piece. Unzip the zipper and place the other half of the zipper into the unsewn side piece. Make sure the zipper is in there evenly so that when it's zipped later, the right teeth match up. Add clips this time and sew the second side of the zipper in place. Here's how it looks with the zipper all sewn in. Go ahead and check the zipper to make sure none of the fabric ended up too close to the zipper teeth. If it did, you'll need to seam rip it and move it a little further away from the zipper teeth. All that's left is to trim the zipper length if needed and add the tabs on the ends. Fold and press the short sides of the tabs in by about 1/2 inch. Fold them in half so the pretty sides are on the inside and sew along the sides. Trim away the excess seam allowance to reduce bulk. Flip them both right sides out and poke out the corners so they look nice. If your zipper is longer than the size noted in the PDF, go ahead and trim off the excess. Slip the zipper tab on the end and sew across the open end a time or two to attach. Do this with both ends of the zipper, and with that, the bag is completed. I love how it turned out. The pockets are the perfect size to fit my phone and is such a nice way to feature a printed fabric without actually using that much of it. Don't forget to grab your copy of the PDF either over on Patreon or on whitneysews.com under the shop tab. I would love to see pictures of the bags you make, so if you make this project, please share a picture on your favorite social media site and tag me so that I see it. And until next time, happy sewing.